My family chose my sister's lie, abandoned me, and now they want me back. I wanted to protect them from ending up homeless. So, I let everything fall apart. Before I explain how that makes any sense, you need to understand where I'm coming from. I'm a 28-year-old guy who grew up thinking my family was rock solid. We lived in a well-off suburb just outside of Chicago. On the outside, everything looked great. My dad had a solid career as a financial advisor at a downtown firm, bringing in enough to give us a comfortable life. My mom, though she worked part-time as a real estate agent, was mostly focused on keeping up the perfect family image. She was constantly involved in neighborhood events, PTA meetings, and anything that put our family in a good light. Christmas cards were a production. Perfect outfits, glowing smiles, everything staged just right. I was their only biological child, the golden boy. School came easily to me, I played sports, and adults always found me respectful and well-mannered. Sure, like any teen, I got into a little trouble. Sneaking drinks with my friends, throwing the occasional party, but it was nothing that truly threatened my mom's carefully curated image of us. When I was 10, they adopted Lily, who was 3 years old at the time. Mom had always wanted a daughter, and the moment Lily arrived, this tiny kid with huge brown eyes, she stole the spotlight. I'll admit, I didn't handle that very well at first. I'd been the center of attention, and now everything was about her. Her first day at school, her little dance outfits, her adorable quotes. I was just a kid too, and it felt like I'd been pushed to the side. It was typical sibling jealousy, really. But over time, we got along okay. Not especially close, but I looked out for her like any big brother would. I remember when some kid was bullying her in 2nd grade, pulling her hair and pushing her around. I was in 9th grade then, and one day I walked her to school and had a little chat with that kid. He never touched her again. I even taught her some basic self-defense. Nothing fancy, just enough to keep her safe. That's just what older brothers do. By the time I hit my final year in college, everything was going right for me. I was the captain of our Division II baseball team and had a real shot at minor league tryouts. My GPA was a 3.85, and I was majoring in business with a finance minor. I had a tight group of friends, the kind who'd help you move or pick you up if your car broke down at 3 a.m. I'd been serious about lifting since high school, and by senior year, I was at my peak physically, benching over 300 pounds, squatting 400 plus, deadlifting close to 500. My physique had that classic V-shape, and I kept it lean year-round. I'm not bragging, just trying to explain where I was at in life. I'd dated here and there, but I hadn't really been focused on relationships. I had a plan. Maybe play ball a little longer, then start a solid career in finance. My dad had the right connections, and I was already set to start a training program at a top investment firm after graduation. Eventually, I'd meet the right woman, settle down, have a couple kids, and live the dream. That was the vision. At that point, Lily was 15 and full on into the theater scene. She was in every school play, dramatic about everything, always surrounded by her artsy friends. When I'd come home for breaks, we'd catch up, dinner, some light teasing, regular sibling stuff. Or so I thought. Now that I look back, there were signs I didn't catch. She'd sometimes get weirdly quiet when our parents praised my achievements. She made these little comments about how I had it easy, how I never had to struggle. And she had this way of telling these over-the-top stories about things at school that just didn't add up. But I brushed it off. It's easy to see things clearly when it's too late. One random Tuesday in October, during senior year, I had just come off one of the most brutal practices of the season. We'd lost a big game over the weekend, and our coach made sure we paid for it. My legs were toast, my shoulder was aching, but I felt that good kind of sore that comes after pushing yourself to the edge. After hitting the showers and getting into some sweats, I checked my phone on the way to my truck. A Ford F-150 my parents had helped me buy for my 20th birthday. What I saw stopped me cold. 37 missed calls. 54 unread messages. The texts were from family, friends, even old classmates. Stuff like, "What the hell is wrong with you?" and "How could you?" One even said, "You're dead to me." My pulse spiked. I thought maybe someone had passed away. Maybe one of my grandparents. I immediately called my dad. When he picked up, his tone was ice cold, colder than I'd ever heard. "Get your ass home. Now. Don't stop anywhere," he snapped, and then hung up. I stood in the parking lot, just staring at my phone, completely thrown. I tried calling my mom. She picked up, but all she did was cry and then hung up. I dialed my best friend from back home, but he didn't answer either. It felt like I had become invisible. Like everyone had agreed I was no longer a person. The drive home felt like a dream I couldn't wake up from. It was only 20 minutes, but every second crawled by. My stomach was twisted in knots, and even though the radio was on, I didn't hear a word. When I finally pulled into the driveway, I noticed way more cars than usual, including Uncle Mike's beat-up truck. He was my dad's younger brother, a contractor with a reputation for blowing up at the smallest thing. He never really liked me. Before I could even get the keys out of the ignition, Mike stormed down the steps, yanked open my truck door, and slammed me against the side. "I should kill you," he shouted right in my face. His breath stank of booze, and his spit hit my cheek. His eyes were wild, completely unhinged. I could have easily shoved him off me. The guy was in his 50s and totally out of shape, but I was too stunned to even move. Dad and another uncle, Steve, pulled him away. Inside. "Now," my dad barked, not even looking at me. When I stepped into the house, it was like walking into a funeral. Every face was stiff. My mom sat hunched on the couch, her eyes puffy and red. Both sets of grandparents were there. So were aunts, uncles, even a few family friends. The room was packed, heavy with silence. And not a single person would look me in the eye. And there she was, my sister Lily, curled up against our grandmother, crying into her shoulder like she was the one who'd been wronged. The moment I stepped inside, it was like the oxygen got sucked out of the room. Everyone's eyes were on me, filled with disgust and something else I couldn't place, maybe fear. The silence was deafening. My voice cracked through it, desperate and confused. "Can someone please tell me what the hell is going on?" I asked, looking around the room, hoping for clarity. My mom, her face blotchy from crying, stared at me with a level of hatred I didn't even know she was capable of. "How could you? To your own sister," she spat. I felt my heart stutter. "What are you talking about?" I asked, trying to hold on to reality. That's when my dad stepped forward. Gone was the calm, collected man I had known my entire life. What replaced him was someone who looked like he wanted to tear me limb from limb. "Lily told us everything," he said coldly. "That you've been sneaking into her room at night for years." His words hit me like a wrecking ball. I couldn't even speak at first. My chest tightened. My vision blurred. "What? What the actual hell?" "That's not true," I managed to say, stumbling backward slightly. "I never touched her. I would never." But Lily was sobbing louder now, rocking back and forth. "You said no one would believe me. You told me you'd hurt me if I told. You said it was our secret," she wailed. I was frozen, shaking, my brain short-circuiting. "I never said that." I screamed, my voice trembling, rising with disbelief. "I've never laid a hand on you. What is happening right now?" Uncle Mike charged at me again, fists clenched and full of rage, but Dad and Steve held him back. "My buddy's a cop," he growled. "You're going to rot in a cell, you sick freak. They're gonna have a good time with you in there." I tried reasoning with them, explaining how ridiculous all of this sounded, begging someone, anyone, to stop and just listen. But no one did. It was like I was speaking another language. Lily kept going, remembering new things, twisting stories, inventing scenarios. She claimed the abuse started when she was 10, while I was home from high school over Christmas break. Said it kept happening for years. That I'd threaten the whole family if she spoke out. Every word from her mouth was a lie, but they all nodded, comforting her, glaring at me like I was the monster. It felt like I had stepped into some warped, alternate universe where truth didn't exist. Then my dad just snapped. The man who'd never raised a hand to me in my life came forward and punched me square in the face. It was brutal. My jaw cracked hard and I hit the floor, tasting blood instantly. "Get out of this house. You're not my son," he said, standing over me, shaking his hand out from the punch. I tried pleading one more time. "Please, this isn't real. You know me, Dad. You've known me my whole life. You know I would never," but he wasn't listening. My clothes had already been packed into trash bags, waiting by the door. He grabbed my wallet and stripped out anything tied to them. Bank cards, insurance, everything. I reached for him, barely able to speak through my swollen lip. "Please," he yanked me up by the shirt, dragged me outside, and hurled me down the steps. I landed hard on my shoulder. Something popped, and he tossed the trash bags after me like I was actual garbage. My baseball gear came next. "If you ever come near this family again, I'll kill you myself," he shouted before slamming the door. I just sat there on the front lawn, blood dripping down my chin, my shoulder throbbing. I could see neighbors staring through their blinds, pretending they weren't. My entire life had just been ripped apart, and I didn't even know why. That night, I parked at the baseball field lot and just sat in the truck for hours, trying to piece it together. No sleep, just running the same nightmare in my head on repeat. What had she done? Why? And how could my parents believe her without even giving me a chance to speak? By morning, my face was a mess. My shoulder felt like it was on fire, and I could barely move my arm. I called my teammate Ryan, and he let me crash on his couch for a bit. His roommates weren't thrilled, but they didn't kick me out. I reached out to every single person in my family. Texted, emailed, called. Nothing. Not a single reply, except one text from my dad. "Contact us again and I'll file a restraining order. You are dead to us." That was it. Ryan tried to be supportive. "Man, you need to go to the cops. File a report. Your dad hit you. You gotta get ahead of this." But I couldn't. Part of me still believed it would blow over, that they'd realize how ridiculous it all was. And the other part? Terrified. What if she stuck to her story? What if everyone kept believing her? How do you prove you didn't do something? 2 weeks later, I got an email from the university. My tuition hadn't been paid. My parents had cancelled the payment. I went to financial aid, hoping for some emergency help, but without a cosigner or solid credit, I was out of options. I had to switch to part-time so I could work full-time just to stay afloat. Got a job working security at a bar. Coach tried to be understanding at first, but between the job and everything else, I missed too many practices. Eventually, I was benched. My grades collapsed. I went from honor roll to barely scraping by. And word got out. Someone in the family must have told someone, and the gossip spread like wildfire. People didn't say anything to my face, but I saw it. The whispers, the glances, the way people moved away from me. It was like I had a scarlet letter branded on my back. 4 months in, my truck died. The engine cracked. It would have cost thousands to fix. I couldn't afford it. Lost my delivery side gig. Then I got kicked out of my apartment because I couldn't pay my share of the rent. I started sleeping in the equipment shed behind the baseball field. Coach gave me the code. I'd sneak into the locker room to shower. Ate once a day, using the last of my meal plan points. One freezing night in February, Coach found me huddled in there, wearing 3 hoodies, curled up in a sleeping bag with a duffel bag as a pillow. He didn't yell. He just sat down next to me. "What happened to you?" he asked softly, genuinely. I told him everything. The accusation. The fallout. My parents cutting me off. The truck. The apartment. He listened. Didn't say he believed me. Didn't say he didn't. Just sat with it. Then said, "You can stay here until the semester ends. After that, I'll help you figure out your next step." The next day, he brought me a space heater and a real air mattress. He and his wife started inviting me to dinner once a week. She always packed leftovers for me to take back. It wasn't much, but for the first time in months, I felt like someone saw me as human again. I barely avoided probation that semester, finished with a 2.1 GPA, but I was done with baseball. Whatever love I had for the game had burned out completely. Coach lined up a summer gig for me at a wilderness program in Colorado, helping out with troubled kids. I know, right? The irony. But it came with food, a roof over my head, and paid under the table. I didn't go back to school that fall. I stayed, got hired as a full-time guide. Days were spent hiking, setting up shelters, teaching survival basics to rich kids whose parents didn't know what else to do with them. Physically, I was stronger than ever, carrying packs up mountains, chopping wood, building things with my hands. I added 15 pounds of solid muscle in 6 months. But mentally, I was broken. I drank until I blacked out almost every night. Tried every drug I could get. Weed, acid, mushrooms, coke. I didn't care. I was just trying to escape the truth that my old life was gone. Then a guide died in a climbing accident. One I could have prevented if I hadn't been hung over. That's when the program director called me in. "Jake, you're one of the best we've got," he told me. "When you're focused, the kids actually listen to you. You're sharp in the wild, but when you're like this, you're dangerous. I can't risk putting lives in your hands when you're falling apart." That was it. The next morning, I was out. Fired. No debate. I moved into the only thing I could afford. A beat-up '98 Honda Civic I'd snagged for $1,200 in cash. It became my new home. For the next year, I scraped together whatever jobs I could land. Bar bouncer, event security, manual labor, hauling supplies at construction sites. Anything that needed muscle and didn't require a resume or background check. I stayed far away from women, families, kids. I wouldn't sit near a child in public. If a family walked into a diner and sat close, I'd leave. I lived in constant fear that someone might accuse me again. The panic was paralyzing. The nightmares came almost nightly. I'd dream about being locked up, with everyone knowing exactly what I'd supposedly done. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, chest pounding like a jackhammer, convinced my heart was about to give out. One night, I was working security at a college bar in Fort Collins when I spotted a familiar face from my old university. He played football back then. He recognized me too. I saw him whispering to a group of friends, pointing, and soon enough, they were all staring, saying things just loud enough for me to hear. "Sick freak. Someone should put him down. Predator." I kept my cool, did my job, closed the bar at 2 a.m., helped everyone out, then headed to my car. That's when they jumped me. 3 of them, the same guys from earlier. They'd waited in the parking lot, called me every disgusting name they could think of, said they were doing the world a favor. I got a few punches in, even broke one guy's nose, but it didn't matter. They caught me off guard, and it was 3 against 1. I ended up with 3 fractured ribs, a dislocated shoulder, a cracked orbital bone, and a concussion. The guy whose nose I broke must have panicked because they all bolted when headlights swung into the lot. Whoever was driving called an ambulance. I spent 2 nights in the hospital, released with no insurance, no home, and a $17,000 bill I had no way to pay. The pain meds barely dulled the constant ache. I couldn't work. I could barely move. I parked in Walmart lots to sleep, used gas station sinks to wash up when I could lift my arms enough to reach my face. That's when I hit bottom. I was done. Just done. It was late one night, and it was raining hard. I drove out to an old bridge outside of town, one I knew dropped far enough to do the job. Parked the Civic, limped to the middle, climbed over the edge. Each step screamed pain through my cracked ribs, but I didn't stop. I just stared down at the dark water. I had my phone in my hand. Nothing but silence for 3 years. No calls. No messages. My family hadn't said a single word. No one was coming. No one even knew where I was. No one cared. "Bit cold for a swim, isn't it?" a voice said behind me. I jumped, nearly slipped. My hand clutched the rail, ribs howling. I turned and saw this older guy, probably mid-70s, standing there in a raincoat, holding a fishing pole like we were out for a casual evening at the lake. "Leave me alone," I muttered, trying not to break. "Can't do that," he replied calmly, like this was a normal conversation. See, if I walk away and you jump, then I gotta live with that. Doesn't matter if we've met or not. Now that I've seen you, it's my responsibility too. That's how life works. He moved closer, not threatening, just steady. Name's Frank. Marine Corps, retired. I've seen plenty of guys standing right where you are. Want to tell me what put you on this side of the rail? You wouldn't understand, I told him. Try me. And for some reason, I did. I told him everything, about the accusations, my parents cutting me off, losing everything, the years of scraping by in the shadows. Maybe because I figured I wouldn't be around long enough for it to matter. Maybe because he reminded me of my grandfather, my real grandfather, the one who would have believed me if he hadn't been too far gone with dementia. When I finished, he just nodded, the same way Coach had back when everything first fell apart. Then he said something I'll never forget. Son, you've been dragging this weight by yourself for too long. Put it down. Just for tonight. Come inside, get warm, dry off, eat a real meal. We'll sort the rest out tomorrow with clear heads. I stared at him. Why? Why would you do that for me? You don't even know if I'm telling the truth. His eyes narrowed, but they weren't angry. They were sharp. Been reading men's faces for 50 years, in war and peace. Either you're telling the truth, or you're the most convincing liar I've ever met. Either way, food ain't permanent. Death is. I could have ignored him. I could have jumped anyway. And some nights, I wonder why I didn't. But something about the way he stood there, calm and steady, like a lighthouse in the middle of a hurricane. That's what made me step back over the rail. Frank's house was small but spotless. Everything had purpose, books perfectly aligned, boots beside the door angled just right. He gave me a set of dry clothes that had belonged to his son, a Marine who didn't make it back from Afghanistan 10 years earlier. He made me shower while he cooked. I ate like I hadn't eaten in weeks. That night, I passed out on his couch. And for the first time in forever, I actually slept. Next morning, he cooked breakfast, eggs, thick-cut bacon, and black coffee strong enough to punch you in the throat. Then he said he had a job for me. He ran a private security outfit, executive protection, high-end event coverage, that kind of thing. We need someone young, built, who follows orders and doesn't talk too much, he said. I stared at him. Why the hell would you offer me something like that? I was about to kill myself on a bridge. He didn't blink. Because a man who looks death in the eye and decides to walk away, that's a man with something left to live for, even if he doesn't see it yet. And because if you mess with me, I know exactly where to find you. And so, for the next half a year, I lived in Frank's guest room and worked for his company. He was tough, up at 5 every morning for workouts, no booze on duty days, strict rules. He made me go to a doctor for my injuries, paid the bills himself, told me I could pay him back when I got steady. The job paid well. They taught me everything, how to invest, how to talk to clients, how to dress sharp again. He also made me go see a therapist. Vietnam vet, someone he trusted. Specialized in trauma. I fought it at first, said I didn't need it, but Frank didn't budge. You got hit, son. Not just in the face. In the head. In the heart. You need to fix all of it, or none of it's going to work. Therapy helped. Slowly, piece by piece, I started to believe it wasn't my fault. That I didn't deserve what happened. That maybe I wasn't broken beyond repair. 6 months later, I'd saved enough to move into a little apartment. Nothing extravagant, but it was clean, it was safe, and for the first time in years, it was mine. I signed up for business management courses at the local community college and started working toward a few specialized security certifications too. Over time, Frank began to feel more like the father I'd lost. He never pushed me to call my parents or reconnect with anyone. Never once suggested I go clear my name or confront the past. He just said, some fights ain't worth the bruises. Focus on the bigger picture. Build a life nobody can strip away. A year into working for him, he asked me to handle security for his niece's art gallery opening. Said it was just a favor for his sister, but I see now he had something else in mind. Sophie wasn't at all what I expected. Frank had described her as sharp and no-nonsense, which was true, but that was only part of it. She was striking in this rare, commanding way. Tall, strong posture, green eyes that felt like they could read you top to bottom, and hair cut in this edgy, asymmetrical style that suited her just right. Not cover model pretty, but the kind of woman who walked into a room and instantly held everyone's attention. We didn't click right away. She pegged me as just another jacked-up security guy with biceps and zero depth. I assumed she was a highbrow art critic with no time for people like me. At one point during the event, I overheard her explaining this really abstract painting to a potential buyer. The customer left empty-handed, and she rolled her eyes the second they were out of sight. Guess not everyone's meant to get it, I muttered, more to myself than to her. She glanced at me, eyes scanning my tailored suit. And you do? Not really, I shrugged. But I'm not pretending either. That earned the faintest smile, quick, but real. As the night went on, I caught her looking over in my direction a few times. Not like she was worried I'd pocket something, but curious. I was doing my job, keeping a low profile, watching the room, noting who lingered too long near the expensive pieces. Quiet, efficient. As the event wound down, just before the last of the guests trickled out, she came over. Uncle Frank says you're more than just muscle. Your uncle talks too much, I said with a smirk. She laughed, really laughed. Not that polite party laugh people fake all night. It was honest. Actually, she said, he barely talks at all. That's why, when he does, people shut up and listen. He said you're in school. Yeah. Business management. Plus some security licenses. Interesting mix. Tell me more. We ended up talking until 2 in the morning. Not about the usual small talk, either. She was sharp, funny, opinionated in a good way. She traveled, read a lot, had strong views on art, politics, music, but she actually wanted to hear my take too. I kept my past off the table, gave vague answers when she asked about my family. Told her my folks had died in a car wreck, that I was an only child. She didn't push. She knew I was hiding something, but she let it go. Frank, on the other hand, didn't. That girl's falling for you, he said one afternoon while we were going over logistics for an upcoming job. And you're falling for her. She deserves the truth before it goes any deeper. He was right. So, one night over takeout at my apartment, I told her everything. From the accusation to the beatdown, the years living out of a car, all of it. I expected her to get up and leave. To look at me like everyone else had. To question if maybe Lily hadn't been lying after all. But she didn't flinch. She reached across the table, took my hand, and said, "Thank you for trusting me. I believe you." No one else had said those words to me. Not even once. Except Frank. I broke. Right there at the table. Just fell apart. Couldn't stop crying. She held me while I let it all out. Years of it. She didn't try to fix it. Didn't ask me to stop. She just stayed with me. 2 years later, I proposed to her. Went old school, down on one knee at the same park where we'd had our first real date. I thought I'd be calm, but my hands were shaking. Heart pounding. She said yes. Frank walked her down the aisle because her dad had passed when she was younger. We bought a modest house in a quiet part of town. Built something real. I finished my degree and became a partner at Frank's firm. We expanded, local contracts turned into regional, then national. Clients trusted us. Word got around. We were professional, discreet, reliable. Sophie's art career took off too. She was finally showing in top-tier galleries, selling pieces for serious money. We started talking about kids. Planning a future. For the first time, I was happy. Genuinely content. The nightmares weren't gone, but they came less often. I could be around kids without that familiar surge of panic. A few old college friends even reconnected. People who had heard bits of the truth through mutual contacts. It felt like the pain was finally behind me, sealed off in a chapter one didn't have to read again. I thought about my family sometimes. I wondered if they ever second-guessed what they'd done. if they'd ever questioned Lily's story. But I had made peace with not knowing. I had a new family now. People who chose me, stood beside me. That was enough. Or at least, I thought it was. Then came this random Tuesday in March. I was in my office prepping security protocols for a VIP tech executive coming in for a conference. Tight setup, high expectations. My assistant buzzed in. "Sir, there's a call on line 1. Woman didn't give her name, just said it's a family emergency." My heart sank. My mind went straight to Sophie or Frank. "Put it through," I said. I picked up the line. "This is Jake," I said, though that's not really my name anymore. A pause. Then a shaky breath and a voice I hadn't heard in nearly a decade. "Jake, it's Mom." My body went ice cold. That voice, 7 years of silence, and now this. I wanted to hang up. I wanted to scream. Instead, I said flatly, "What do you want?" "Please, don't hang up," she begged. "We need to talk. It's important." 7 years, I said. "You let me rot for 7 years. What could possibly be that important now?" My voice didn't sound like mine. It was frozen, hard. Then came the words. The ones I'd waited a lifetime for but never expected to hear. Lily confessed. She lied about everything. She made it all up. Everything stopped. I couldn't hear. Couldn't move. 7 years. 7 years of dragging myself through hell, of starting over, of therapy, panic attacks, lost time, ruined trust. And it was all a lie. One lie. I didn't answer. Didn't say a word. Just hung up the phone. I walked out of my office without explanation. Told my assistant to cancel everything. Got in my car and drove straight to Frank's place. Sat at his kitchen table and told him what she said. He nodded slowly. "So, what do you want to do?" he asked. "I don't know," I replied. "Yeah, you do," he said quietly. "You just don't know if it's the right thing." And he was right. Part of me wanted to shut it all out. Let them live with the mess they made. But another part needed something. Closure. Answers. An end to that chapter one thought was already sealed. When I told Sophie that night, she didn't blink. "You need to hear it from them," she said. "And whatever you choose, I'm right here. This doesn't change us." For the next 2 weeks, I ignored every call, every text. Mom, Dad, aunts, uncles. Suddenly everyone had something to say. I ran it all by my therapist. Yes, I still see one. I'm not ashamed to admit it anymore. I needed to face them, but only on terms I set. I sent my mom a message. Told her to meet me at a coffee shop on Main Street, Sunday at 2 p.m. Just her, my dad, and Lily. I made it clear I'd be bringing people too. They'd get one shot. That was it. When Sunday rolled around, Frank insisted on coming with me. He didn't say much. He just wanted to be there. Sophie never left my side. Her fingers were interlaced with mine the whole drive, gripping tight enough that my knuckles hurt. We got there early, and I chose a corner table where I could see every exit and entrance. Old instincts. Couldn't help it. My stomach was twisted into knots. I half expected them not to show. Or worse, to show and play games. Sophie kept checking on me with worried eyes. "We can leave whenever. Say the word." Then, right on the dot, 2 o'clock, they walked in. My mom looked older. Her hair had gone mostly gray, and her face was drawn and worn. Dad was gaunt, thinner than I remembered. His designer wardrobe was gone, replaced with baggy khakis and a button-up shirt that had seen better days. Lily looked completely different from the girl I remembered. She was 22 now, her expression quiet, eyes downcast. No drama. No attitude. Just silence. When Mom saw me, she teared up and started moving toward me like she wanted to hug me. I stepped back, gently easing Sophie in between us. "Sit." I said it flatly. Everyone Saturday. No one spoke. It stretched out, seconds that felt like hours, until my father finally cleared his throat. "Son, I'm not your son," I cut in. You made that clear a long time ago. Just say whatever you came to say. Get to the point. Mom was already crying. Dad looked crushed. Lily still wouldn't meet my gaze. 3 months ago, Dad began, his voice strained. Lily sat us down. She told us, she admitted she lied. About everything. I turned to Lily. Look at me. Eventually, she did. Her eyes were red. Her cheeks blotchy. Why? My voice cracked as I said it. It didn't even sound like me. She took a slow breath. I was jealous. You were the golden boy. The perfect one. Smart. Athletic. Everyone loved you. Mom and Dad always talked about how proud they were of you. I just wanted some of that attention for myself. So you destroyed me. My words felt like glass in my mouth. You accused me of something that could have landed me in prison. Ruined me completely. I didn't think it would go that far, she whispered. I thought they'd get mad at you, maybe ground you or something. But when people started asking questions, I didn't know how to undo it. And then everyone treated me like I was special. And I didn't want it to stop. I turned to my parents. And you? You didn't even ask questions. You just threw me out like garbage. Dad looked like a ghost. We thought we were protecting her. She was our little girl. And I was your son. My hand slammed the table, rattling the cups. Conversations around us stopped. People were definitely listening now. I wasn't even in town that weekend. I was at a baseball tournament in Denver. Pictures were all over Facebook. Did you even check? Mom covered her mouth like she might be sick. Dad went pale. You want to know what happened after you abandoned me? My truck died. I lost my apartment. I was sleeping in a shed full of baseball gear. I got beat half to death by strangers who thought I was a predator. I stood on a bridge ready to jump because the people who were supposed to love me didn't even ask for the truth. I pulled out my phone. Swiped through photos. My swollen face after that bar fight. My skeletal frame during the months I was homeless. Hospital papers showing my injuries. This was your son. Me. And you left me for dead. My voice broke. Sophie squeezed my hand. Frank laid a firm hand on my shoulder, just enough to keep me grounded. I'm so sorry, Mom sobbed. We made a terrible mistake. We want to make it right. Make it right. I laughed, bitter and raw. How? You gonna give me back 7 years of my life? You gonna erase the trauma, the panic, the therapy, the shame? She didn't answer. She couldn't. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in 5 minutes. We want you to come home, he said quietly. We want to be a family again. I shook my head. That's not going to happen. I already have a family. I looked at Sophie, then at Frank. Then Lily spoke, for the first time without being asked. There's more you should know, she said quietly. She explained how everything changed after her confession. Mom and Dad had cut her off financially. Sold the BMW they gave her when she turned 16. She dropped out of her fancy college and was working retail while taking night classes. Dad's business had tanked after some bad deals, and they had to sell the big house. Now they lived in a cramped apartment. Mom's reputation had been shattered when the truth came out. The town had turned on her. We need your help, Mom said, barely able to look at me. Your father's business is collapsing. We're close to losing our place. Lily can't afford school. We've sold almost everything. So that was it. It wasn't about love. Or regret. It was about money. I laughed again, this time uncontrollably. Let me get this straight. You ruin my life, turn your backs on me, and now that I've put myself back together without you, you want me to save you? Is that what I'm hearing? We're still family, Dad mumbled. No, we're not. I stood up slowly. You made your choice 7 years ago. Now live with it. Please, Lily cried. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But they shouldn't suffer because of what I did. You're right. They should suffer for their decisions. I turned to them. I forgive you, Lily. You were a kid who made a terrible, horrible mistake. But you too. I looked at my parents. You were adults. You had a duty to protect both of us. And you failed. I dropped some cash on the table to cover the coffee. As I turned to leave, Mom grabbed my arm. Please, she whispered. Don't let this be the end. What do you want from us? Just tell us. I stared at her, really looked at her, and said, I want you to know what it feels like to lose everything. To feel completely alone. To have the people you trust most turn their backs on you. That's what I want. Because maybe then, just maybe, you'll understand what you did to me. We walked out, me, Sophie, and Frank. As we reached the car, Frank clapped a hand on my back and said, Proud of you, son. That was 2 years ago. Since then, I've heard through the grapevine that they lost their condo. Dad now works at a warehouse. Mom cleans houses. Lily dropped out of school entirely and moved out of state. Every once in a while, I think about reaching out. Sophie says forgiving them fully might be the last piece of healing I need. Not for them, but for me. Frank told me whatever I decide, he's behind me. Right now, my focus is on the family I've chosen. Sophie's pregnant with our first. We're expanding the firm into 3 new states. We're building something real. Something no one can take away. And for those who asked, yes, I considered pressing charges against Lily, but the statute of limitations ran out. No, I don't feel bad about not helping my parents. They made their choices, and now they live with them. And yeah, Sophie's pregnancy is going smoothly. Thanks for asking. Some of you say I should help Lily because she was just a kid. Maybe. But she wasn't 5, she was 15. Old enough to know she was lying. She let me suffer for 7 years before telling the truth. I might reach out one day, but I'm not there yet. And as for letting my parents meet their grandchild, honestly, I haven't decided. They won't be in the delivery room. They won't be babysitting. But maybe one day, under supervision, when I trust they've changed and taken accountability, maybe. And to the folks saying this story isn't real, believe what you want. I didn't write this for you. I wrote it for the people out there who've lived through something similar. People who've been lied about, abandoned, shattered, and had to rebuild. Oh, and for the guy who asked if I hate all women now? No. My wife is a woman.